Tavern safety has again come under the spotlight following a number of recent violent incidents at liquor outlets across the country. In these incidents, attacks involving firearms and violent altercations inside taverns led to multiple deaths and injuries, turning social spaces into scenes of tragedy and leaving communities traumatized. These incidents raise urgent questions about safety, regulation and accountability in taverns, whether licensed or informal, and the systems in place to protect patrons and nearby communities. Today, we explore the regulatory framework governing taverns, the practical safety measures that can reduce risk, and how communities and authorities can work together to prevent further violence. Joining us in studio is Lucky Ntimane, the convener and founder of the National Liquor Traders Association. And joining us virtually is a specialist investigator, Mike Bolhuis. And together they provide insights into how taverns are regulated in practice, the gaps that persist on the ground, and practical steps that could improve safety. Lucky, to begin with you, man, thank you so much for joining us. Really do appreciate it. Are your association members worried?
Thanks so much for the opportunity, and wishing our festive greetings to Mike. We are very worried because this for us poses an existential threat, meaning that our ability to trade and operate and put food on our table is actually under risk. Most of the tavern owners that we've engaged with are actually scared. Some have opted to even closing early so that they can mitigate against any risk that might ensure if they operate within the prescribed hours, which normally in the tavern environment is 2 a.m. So we are very worried because if you look at the nature of the violence and I mean people coming in with automatic rifles, it is difficult to stop that. Even though we do have minimum requirements for our liquor traders.
What are those minimum requirements in terms of safety?
So that you have someone that stands guard, but that person will not be armed. That you also have cameras at your establishment so that you can deter would-be criminals to come into a place. Because as it were, most of our traders and also our patrons at the same time, they are sitting ducks when they are busy enjoying themselves. Because these criminals know that those that are inside the taverns are not armed. So it's easy for someone to walk in and just do whatever they want to do. But if you look at the past 2 incidents, one in Salisbury, where 12 people died, and this one in Beckersdale, where 10 people died, you could see that those people came to kill. It's as if this was planned beforehand, and that prompted us to actually convene a tavern summit, one of its kind, that was held in Soweto, partnering with EmpowerWorks as an organization that helps to educate some of the issues that we are dealing with on the ground. So we had the Deputy Provincial Commissioner of Gauteng, General Kekana. We also had the Acting Deputy National Commissioner for Crime Detection and Crime Intelligence, Lieutenant General Kosi Sintimule. And this goes to show the collaborative effort that we believe is going to be the step in the right direction in ensuring that we address the issues that we see, because we believe that the killings that we're seeing are not really targeted at taverns, but it's just a spillover of the crime that takes place in a community, and then the taverns lend themselves into being those spaces where these crimes are being committed.
Let's talk, you're touching on it briefly, but I want us to double click and zoom in on it. Why are taverns such attractive points for violent crime, particularly armed violent crime?
So if you look at the township space, I mean, crime is rife and rampant in South Africa. So what you're seeing in the tavern environment is that because we exist, we're part of the ecosystems of the community. So the crime that takes place in a township will eventually lend itself in a tavern environment, because that's the only space where people can socialize. And that's where people are minding their own business, having fun, without having to worry about any other thing. But lo and behold, now we have to be worried because anyone can just walk in. So the taverns have become, those soft spots for criminality to take place.
Yeah. Mike, do you have a view on why it is that taverns are such attractive destinations for gratuitous violent crime?
Well, I first have to make something very clear from my organization, as well as many, many others that support us, that we against any form of shebeen and tavern, especially now in our country. First of all, the public can't afford it. These communities are supposed to take their salaries home and first look after their wives and their children. You just had a program on, which really inspired me again, and we are forerunners on that for any crimes against the elderly, women and children. And most marriage investigations that we do has a liquor problem. So I agree everything with what the gentleman is saying. They've got their hands full, and there's extreme rules and regulations that should be in place. But, you know, South Africa must come now to a point, and we've been saying it for years, we need to really put our foot down and work on a zero tolerance basis. And liquor is the cause of extreme violence. Now, there's not a spate of taverns that's being attacked, but it's now been in the news of these 2 taverns that were specifically attacked, and it's still unknown what was the specific reasons, but it could be anything from turf wars to money that is owned to vigilantes. Maybe somebody was raped there. Maybe something really went bad there. And maybe it's the Zama-Zamas. You would never know unless a full forensic, in-depth identification, evaluation, and risk analysis is being done by a highly specialized police. And then you need informants to prevent these kinds of crimes whilst taverns are still existing. But I can tell you very straightforward, if I was in control of authority in South Africa, one of the first things I will close down is taverns, because South Africa has got a huge problem with the liquor addiction.
Yeah.
And from liquor addiction, you lose your family, you lose your money, and you're not looking after the women and children.
Yeah. I mean, you'd have a very hard time, Mike. It's a constitutionally enshrined right to enterprise, and insofar as you are able to enterprise, social spaces like taverns, bars, and pubs are entirely within the constitutional framework for many to operate. And I mean, it would be quite unusual to leave that to the preserve of those in suburbia to be able to enjoy the social spaces of bars, pubs, and taverns in the middle and upper class. So that certainly would be a tough task. But insofar as that we have them, the question is, how do we ensure that they're safe? Like, just to go back to some of those minimum requirements you spoke about, an unarmed bouncer, so to speak, which is a common practice even in clubs, and cameras. How many operators are able to afford to be able to have that?
So if you look at the tavern landscape in South Africa, we're sitting at about 42,000 of them licensed. But the problems that we've been dealing with, even with regards to the shooting incidents that we have uncovered, they take place in unlicensed establishments. So maybe I need to clarify the difference between a tavern and a shebeen. So a tavern is a licensed establishment that has permission to sell alcohol for sit-down consumption. Now, a shebeen is an unlicensed outlet that sells alcohol. In its very nature, it's illegal and should not be in operation. So if you look at the 42,000 taverns that we have in our database, majority of them cannot simply afford to have these security measures in place, simply given that the revenue for taverns is actually at a very minimum. On average, a tavern will make about 10,000 to 15,000 on a weekly basis. And that's just revenue. So if you look at the profit margins of a tavern, they range between 15 and 20%. So it's very difficult for them to actually invest more in security beyond just having a bouncer or someone at the gate who then controls the crowd, but also ensures that those that are under the age of 18 do not come into the establishment.
Yeah. On motive, Mike mentioned something very interesting there, and that is potential turf wars. Now, we know that the issuances of licenses are very limited. In fact, some liquor boards go a little bit overboard, but there's a specific threshold in terms of ratio in a square kilometer that a liquor board must take into consideration. Of course, it can't be too close to a school or a clinic or any such environment, and that they must be reasonably far apart, that you don't over-concentrate the townships with taverns. And so because licenses are difficult to come by, and of course there's a competition for clientele, one would imagine that liquor traders would, in some instances, go to extreme measures to sort of eliminate competition. Do you think that is a plausible motive?
No, we don't think so, because if you look at the last 2 incidents where almost 22 people lost their lives, those were not licensed, so there will not really be a competition for them to be turned out because they're not licensed in any event. We are keenly waiting for the report, because we've been asking these questions even when we had an incident in Tavern. We want to understand why these killings are happening, not just because we're tavern owners, but also because we're part of communities where this violence is taking place. We have committed ourselves to working very closely with law enforcement to ensure that we are part of the solution, especially of this crime, because we cannot have a situation where, now we have to talk tavern and crime scene at the same time. It cannot be. I mean, this is a heightened period for us to be able to trade a bit better and make an extra buck so that we can support our families. But we cannot do that now because we're not free, we're not safe in our own establishments. And if you look at the tavern setup, it operates within the household. So it means not only is your tavern at risk, but also your entire household is at risk as well. So it's a very tough environment for us to treat.
Yeah. Mike, I want to bring you back into the conversation. At the center of this, what we have is at guns. In one instance, an automatic rifle was being used in the execution of those at the tavern. We have a gun problem in South Africa as well. The proliferation of weapons in South Africa is something that we need to seriously take heed of. Do you have some idea about how we can overcome firearms, particularly illegal firearms, in our communities?
Unfortunately not, and we know that the people are watching this show, and I want to warn all tavern owners, you have to do something about security, but even an unarmed bouncer, even a few of them, is not going to stop if somebody has targeted a tavern with lethal weapons, any weapons. There's just no way. And they don't have CCTV cameras. They don't have intel and informants that can warn them. Those are the three most important things. If you then really want to run a tavern, you need to make sure that your patrons are safe. Otherwise, the blood is on your hands. You cannot just make a buck and, in my opinion, steal a community that's already poor, shebeens as well, all of them. You cannot do any of this unless you have taken no business in South Africa. Name me one business that does not have all the necessary paraphernalia for safety and security. And we all know how many stolen guns is out there. Not one legitimate registered weapon is used in any of these attacks. It's the houses that are robbed, it's caches that are stored during the years, and even police depots that are robbed, and firearms institutions that are robbed of their weapons. And this is the weapons that are used here. There's no way. It's the year of the gun. It's going to be it next year as well. Settlement to settle a thing today. They don't come in with fists or baseball bats anymore. They use a gun. And you've got drive-by shootings, and I want to warn the tavern owners. They have a responsibility to people, and they must make sure that they have proper intel in the community. You need to sit down with the community and say, listen, those against taverns and shebeens, stand up. And if that's the case, no taverns, no shebeens. If they say, no, we want it, we really want it, we'll be responsible. Because remember, the barman cannot give you 20 double brandies and Coke. If he sees you intoxicated, it's the law to say stop. And you know, when people drink, they become lions. They think they can do anything, MacGyvers and Rambos, and they cause serious trouble. So you can think for yourself, and then they fight about politics and the woman, and then a fight breaks out. So you need proper security, proper intel, and you need CCTV footage. Otherwise, you can't run a tavern.
Yeah. Is a precipitating factor, Lucky, potentially that what we have take place is non-compliance with responsible consumption prescripts that are a licensed condition? Or do we have a situation where, and I mean, I'm sure we do, we certainly do have tavern operators who don't adhere to the license conditions around responsible consumption?
So we certainly do have rotten potatoes in our midst, those that put their profits ahead of the lives of people. But I think I need to respond to Mike. I think if we leave this unchallenged, it will create a scenario that, you know, taverns who are generally black-owned, I mean, I had to come across a tavern that is white-owned. His thinking is that we cannot manage our businesses and that somehow our environment invite criminality, which is very wrong. Out of the 42,000 taverns that we have, the employment is around 300,000. So we're the biggest contributor to the township economy. And if you look at the reality of South Africa and the township, we almost have only two businesses that are in the hands of black people, which is taverns and the taxi industry. We are not going to close. Unfortunately, his wishes are not going to come true in this festive season. Taverns are here to stay, whether he likes it or not. The issue that we all need to be engaged with as a country is how we fight the issue of crime, which then happens to spill over in social spaces, and taverns become the target of that.
Just again on taverns not having the ability or at least the financial means to employ additional security, to have CCTV footage cameras, and to even have an unarmed bouncer, so to speak. They're sitting at the lowest end of the alcohol value chain, right? And above them are distributors, wholesalers, and manufacturers. What responsibility should they bear on the top end of that vertical to ensure that taverns are safe? Because ultimately, that's where the products end up, that's where the products are sold. If taverns are non-operational, if 42 taverns had to shut down today, I'm sure manufacturers, wholesalers and distributors would feel a dent in their bottom line. I mean, many of them would have to shut down their businesses. What responsibility should they bear?
This is actually a very important question, and one that I think we have been scared to ask. I think liquor manufacturers should take responsibility in ensuring that there is some sort of safety in taverns. Some of the investment to ensure that, you know, there is safety in our establishments should actually come from the liquor manufacturers, because in the absence of any taverns, they will not be able to sell anything except in retailers and distributors that we have. So they need to play their part in ensuring that they partner with some of these liquor traders and ensure that, you know, the safety mechanisms are put in place. Because when you buy alcohol from these reputable manufacturers, you open a liquor license, you open an account with them. So you're also able to buy on credit, for example. So yes, indeed, if taverns close, then they will take some blame as well, because they didn't protect these liquor orders. And we have seen...
is there a willingness on part of manufacturers to step in?
I think there is a willingness to engage, and because of the Tavern Summit that we held on Wednesday, some of the key engagements that are going to take place in the next few days are going to involve the manufacturers. They really need to play their part. They cannot sit in a corner anymore.
Yeah, and just lastly, and quite importantly here, is the police in communities. There's a policing crisis across the country. There aren't enough boots on the ground, so to speak. But we know during heightened times, like over the December festive period, and now with New Year's and New Year's Eve being an important day for the monitoring of suspicious movement, for crime, and of course people gather at these social spaces. What is it that could be done from a coordinated effort with the existing resource base that we have in state capacity to ensure the safety of people?
So the existence of taverns should not burden our law enforcement. And in that regard, I would like to make a call and a plea to our liquor traders that, yes, you do have the closing times that's prescribed, 2 a.m., but is it necessary in order to ensure that you provide a safe environment, not just for patrons, but also for the community that you operate in? When you apply for a liquor license, the community is the one that gives you permission to open a tavern. So we operate at the pleasure of our community. Let us respect our community enough to ensure that, as we have seen, taverns becoming taverns. We do not operate till the wee hours of the morning. Let us support our communities by ensuring that we do not put profits ahead of the welfare and well-being of our communities.
Yeah, Lucky Ntimane, thank you very much. And just maybe last word out, because, I mean, it is the New Year's period coming up right now. What are some of your immediate concerns pertaining to alcohol consumption in the country? Because it's one thing to speak about tavern owners and operators, but we must speak about consumers as well. And consumer behavior. And of course, you guys do a lot of work in terms of trying to impact and influence and engineer consumer behavior to be geared towards responsible consumption. Tell us about what work is being done there, but also what your concerns are in terms of consumer behavior.
So we're concerned about the underage drinking. We're concerned about binge drinking. But also concerned about drink and driving and those that are jaywalking. We have seen the statistics from the RTMC. Almost 45% of those that are killed on our roads are pedestrian. And some of them, there's a linkage between people walking at night and some not wearing very visible clothing. And we must admit, some of them will be coming from taverns. So we are saying that let us be responsible as a consumer, and I'll speak as a consumer as well. If you know that you're going to get behind the wheel, don't drink. In fact, the concept that aware.org, our sister organization, is pushing is that she motor car, leave your car behind. You know, the car is not going to drink. You are the person who's going to drink. Get an inhaler, get into a public transport, and go and enjoy yourself and come back home safely.
Yeah. Lucky Ntimane, thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. Lucky Ntimane is the founder and convener of the National Liquor Traders Association. We're going to take a break. On the other side of this, we continue.